Elite Assembly. Step up, see flash is the ToyLeet crew. We're the kings of the game, yeah, the chosen few. From the shadows we rise with the rarest find. Collect them, respect them, we're one of a kind. ToyLeet, ready the streets. Elite with defeats in this collectible feast. ToyLeet, never the street. When the heart of the beat, we're all playmates me. Check our stacks, our collection supreme. Limited editions, every collector's dream. We're the myths, we're the legends, with every drop. Taking over the block, we never stop. In the alleys where the echoes play. ToyLeet's the name, hear what we say. Rising, thriving, always thriving. In our realm we're always dropping. ToyLeet, bring the street, the live ToyLeet. Setting the pace. With a snap of the case and a click of the lock. ToyLeet's on top and we're ready to rock. Collecting more than just toys. We're up. We're up. We're up. ToyLeet's in the place, set in the place.
See if I did this right. Did I do it right? I think we're good.
I think we're on the right side.
Yeah.
We're at the right. Well, we're a couple minutes late, but we're always on the right time.
Yeah. It's the right time wherever we are. Yeah. Sorry
That's
about
right.
that, folks. Thanks for jumping in. We appreciate you guys for jumping in and listening to us. A couple technical difficulties, as my partner in crime here pointed out a flaw in my presentation earlier, so I had to last minute get some updates done. I think we're good though. So thanks for jumping on and following and watching with us tonight. So we're live here to talk about ToyLeet Takeover, and for those that aren't familiar, he's Ed Akxion Figs, and I got it right the first time that time, guys.
I know, I am impressed, and he is the Mr. Wonderful, Travis.
That's
that guy right there.
Awesome. Yeah, that like right here.
Right there.
Here. Yes.
Right there.
Maybe even the best in the world, as they would say. That said, we are the ToyLeet together. I think we kind of skipped that intro piece there, but we'll just go with it. We'll go with it.
We'll roll with it. Like, so, what are you sipping on?
Water.
Coffee.
Just water. Yeah. So we're here tonight to talk about the normal stuff, right? So that those that aren't familiar with us, we kind of run through our spiel, right? We're Ed and Travis, Mr. Wundrful, Akxion Figs. We have a passion for plastic, right? We love our toys. We love our toy adjacent items, and we have a new item I'll talk about this week that's a toy adjacent that I think some folks in the chat may have already heard about or seen that they'll be interested to hear a little bit more about. That said, we'll go ahead through our normal weekly news. We bring in a special broadcast individual to talk about the weekly news that's occurred. We bring in Ed to do one of the things that we love to talk about, which is champion a member of the brotherhood. We've been kind of killing off that term community, right? And we're replacing it with the word brotherhood. So, we're rolling with that. So we'll do a shout out from the crick as we'll throw back to some of Akxion's original live stream approach. And then additionally, we'll do the ToyLeet or ToyLit segment, meaning does it go down the flusher or does it go on the shelf? And we'll go ahead and give a review of something one of us has recently received. And then we'll go into the main topic. We'll talk a little bit more about the main topic, a little bit. But those are our kind of regular segments. This week we have an interesting topic, semi-controversial if I do say so myself. That said, Ed, what's new, brother?
It's controversial, but we're not going to have any drama. There's just no room for drama in the brotherhood. You know,
Nah,
it's all fun, right? Competition
exactly.
is good for everybody, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So,
Um, so you know, what's new with you, Ed? How was your week?
oh, let's see. I'm doing good, man. I'm on my second week of actually being back in an office for 8 hours plus a day. So
Oh man.
been a little burnout. Had a hell of a weekend. I went and got toasted on Saturday at a party. Uh, Lost my phone in a lake and
Oh man.
forgot where I was for several hours and woke up. My brother said, "Hey, let's go to breakfast." I said, "Sure." So we went to breakfast at like 6 a.m.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I did get a message from you because I happened to slip into the Wonderful World of Oz clubhouse on Saturday, and he said, "Oh, there's one half of the ToyLeet. Where's your buddy?" And I sent you a message, and I got a message about 12 hours
Yeah.
later saying,
Let
"Rough
me
night,
just
dude."
let me just say thank you to everybody that reached out wondering where I was because I got a lot of messages saying, "Dude, are you okay? Are you alive?" I lived. It was an adventure, and it's just another chalk up to the glory of life, right? So I
Awesome.
missed you guys all on Saturday night, but I appreciate all the concern. So
Good deal. Good deal. Speaking of Saturday nights, and I didn't talk about this in advance, but I want to cover it now while we got a bunch of folks in.
yeah,
We'll cover it again later. This week is going to be over on the Wonderful World of Oz, the clubhouse. You guys are doing a 24-hour stream with a number of different participants. Sounded like last I heard there might be some folks coming in from
yep,
on site.
live from the
The
San
con,
Diego
San Diego.
Comic Con. Yep, San Diego Comic Con. So
Awesome. Yeah.
uh,
So is that only going to be streamed on Oz's channel, or is it a collective? Everybody kind of
well, it's I was going to be hosting it,
multi-broadcast,
and I mean, I'm sure like Punk when he's on, he'll probably simulcast.
simulcast?
A couple other people simulcast, but
Okay,
mostly
cool.
mostly in the Ostradamus,
So if you want to find out where it is and jump right on in, the
I'm gonna,
best way to do that is to go to our buddy Oz's stream.
yeah, I'm gonna drop a link in the
Okay.
chat real quick to his YouTube, but go ahead and keep going, Travis.
Awesome. Yeah, no. So definitely that should be a cool, I think 24 hours, 6 a.m. to 6 a.m. on
Yep,
Sunday.
6 a.m. Saturday morning Eastern time to 6 a.m. Saturday morning Eastern time. So
that's gonna be one hell of a stream. I mean, I know all the characters and crew. I think it's the longest you guys have all gone together collectively.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
it'll be interesting. By the way, ToyLeet, Travis specifically, I'm taking over unders on who's going to have the most time on stream. So send all your action to me. I'll link the Venmo later. I kid. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see who's able to ride it out for that full 24 hours.
Well, it's going to be
20 years ago. I could have, but
Oz and I will be on most of the time. We're going to give each other a break, but since him and I are running the StreamYard, him or I have to be on. So I mean,
yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Good deal, man. Good deal. I made it through last week's worth of work and got back here today. It's been kind of crazy. Some new things coming. I'll be teaming up with 1-2 Kickout over on their YouTube channel.
that's
the sister tube of Hella Dope Toys.
Sister Tube of Hella Dope with half of the Hella Dope boys riding most of it out, right?
Yeah, I've been asked to join him to talk to Aaron about some wrestling. Think we have something we're working on, so keep your eye out. I think it'll be really cool. I've got some cool ideas to help him with it. Hopefully, I'm just not being an idiot and he likes the ideas, but that should be fun. But found that out just the other day.
Of course, you're being an idiot, but what fun is it not to be?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, other than that, I made it to the office and home safe. Somebody got stabbed in the chest right down the block from my office, so closed off access to the office for a little while the other day. So that was, like I said, I survived the stabbing of 2024, which is an impressive feat. So yeah, fun times. Work has been crazy, but life has been fun. I can't complain. Better than I deserve, as they say.
Exactly, man. It's the only way you can look at it. Thank you, bud. I appreciate the love there. And yes, I wouldn't expect anything else but that.
Ooh, I like that. That said, Ed, do you want to hit up the chat real quick? I know you're kind of pulling some things in. Let's circle up with the chat real quick.
Let's hit the chat up real quick. If you're not first, you're last. Mr. Roll Keeper is in the house. Hello. Let's
What's
talk
up, Roll Keeper?
rivalries. Let's talk Gobits and Transformers and
Ooh, I
GI
didn't cover
Force
that
and
one.
Action Joe. And
didn't cover
Bud is here. He got his TOG Turtles of Gray Skull Splinter today.
Oh, nice.
Already painted him up, which is not surprising. And he's adding cloth goods, which is not surprising. I can't wait to see him, Bud.
Good deal.
Let's see. We are officially a YouTube Toy Tuber channel now since Nolan is here.
What's up, Nolan?
And what's up to everybody? And the man we were just talking about, Ostradamus Toys, the one and only Mr. Green Bandana, Mr. Beard of Odin, says, hello, friends. And this guy here who works just as hard as I do on Monday and Thursday nights and still hasn't got a dime for it. So
hold on. That's because you guys got to carry the load of that
I know
Mr.
that other
Lawrence 5K,
guy,
right?
Yeah. And Matthew has a show that starts at 10 p.m. tonight. Just because he wanted to see if he could compete with the ToyLeet, which, you know.
I don't think he was trying to compete. I think he was trying to freeload off of our
he just wants to come in here and say, hey, everybody come over and watch me. He takes right after that guy he mods for.
No, you definitely go support Matthew.
Yeah.
He's awesome.
Matthew and Pop are doing a great show about pop culture. So that's over on Pop Blender's channel. So you guys want to see that, or, you know, if after you're done watching this, pop over there. They're usually still going when we're done. And this guy here, Ted Darklaw, half of the ownership of Hella Dope Toys and half my boss.
Hella dope toys will never die. They'll sell. I make them buy. Hella dope toys will never die.
Sorry, I had it on replay.
Anybody that hasn't seen it yet, last night, Ted, Aaron, and I closed a deal to start carrying Delta 17 in the Hella Dope store. We had a meeting with Steve and Ken from Delta 17 last night. Got that deal all closed and got some figures up for pre-order just while we're waiting for them to actually arrive. So expanded the product offering and hopefully going to grow the business. And then we have
it makes sense that Hella Dope would be offering a ton of D because they love the D.
I know
D17 that is.
Yeah.
D17.
Maybe that's what they wanted for that. D17. That makes sense now. Yeah. The Briscoe, what's up, Briscoe? And let's see who else. Bunches of people saying hi. And then we got this guy.
Oh, did somebody say
here comes the money?
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money.
So I love that he uses that. He wasn't using that before we started doing it, right? Because now he does it whenever he gets money in there, right?
I think he was, but I don't really remember.
Really?
Yeah.
Man, I never heard him say it.
Then we have the old Fetrid, as Ted likes to call him, Fetrid. Mr. Foo, as I call him, the Foo.
Brother?
What's up, brother? And speaking of Delta 17 and one of the coolest guys out there today, Toy Connections Ken, Heart Foundation versus DX. That's right.
We know who wins that every time.
According to Sarge, Ken asked him, Bret Hart's still the best.
Good deal.
We're almost caught up. Hold on. I only asked if you were doing okay because I didn't want to find a new mod. Thanks, Punk. Whatever the reason for your appreciation was, I'm good with it. And yes, this is something we need to work on and promote. Let's get Oz up to 500 subs. He's been lingering at that midpoint, right close, but not close enough for a long time. And that's Bud. And then we got DJ 5000. What's up, guys? What's up, DJ?
What's up,
and then are you ready? For this guy. The Nomad. Beautiful.
Not as pretty as the one that Aaron does for us, but I kind of like it. It's got a little beat to it too.
Yeah. What's up, Nomad? And that is it for the chat at this point in time, brother. So let's roll on.
Good deal. Awesome. So yeah, at this point, I believe it or not, don't have any pickups this week.
I cannot believe that.
I mean, but I think it's just because FedEx sucks. Because I was actually supposed to get a package yesterday, I had ordered some stuff that was on sale cheap on Target app, like, I don't know, 4 months ago.
Yeah.
3-minute warning Mattel action figures to put up on my shelf because I know they'll never come out with Ultimates, and I wanted those two, so I'm gonna put them up there. They're bigger guys anyways, so they got all the like soft goods and stuff. So I thought it looked really cool. So I got those, and I got an Ultimate Undertaker coming, but they were supposed to be here yesterday, and they still haven't come.
And they
I
didn't even
keep
get
checking
delivered
my
today.
app.
That's strange, man.
Yeah, like they were in like Pennsylvania or something yesterday, and I was like, "Where the heck are these?" They were supposed to be delivered on the 20. Actually, supposed to be delivered on the 20th, I think. So
Damn,
yeah, I'm just waiting on those. But yeah, we'll get there.
that's crazy.
How about
dude.
you? What do you got? What do you got this weekend?
So I did pick up a Tiger Force Outback, and I
I
threw
saw
on
that.
the Mad Dog head from the Fist, and I thought it came out pretty damn cool looking. So funny story, I was farting around with this after Joe Fest, and I broke the neck trying to get the head off.
Off of the
Off of the actual Fist Mad Dog figure.
ooh, that's
But
rough.
it's all good. It was mostly my fault because I was too warm because it had been sitting in the car, and I just yanked on the head, wasn't being
Yeah.
careful at all. I mean, should the neck post broke? Probably not, but I mean, I definitely could have been a little more careful with it. But anyway, in their defense, I texted Esteban through IG, and he's sending me out another Mad Dog figure this
Oh,
weekend
that's awesome.
from San Diego Comic-Con. So,
That's so cool.
you know,
That's
they
good. And see, that's why I want them to succeed. I want him
Yeah.
to get his production right. But I will say that I saw that image that you posted on Instagram the other day, and I was like, that got me thinking. Like, I've got a couple. Like, how well does that head sit in there?
Oh, dude, it popped right on. Like the ball
Right.
peg fit right on.
So no extra like.
No, I didn't have to
glue
do
sack
anything
or
to it. I just heated it up, popped it on just like it was a normal head.
Sorry, I got an alert about something joining my network, and I'm like, I don't think product agents should be joining my network at home. I'm not sure what that is. But yeah.
So then I got
because those have some cool heads there. I was thinking that
the heads are really cool. I
like the sculpts that he had, but the bodies and stuff left a little to be desired. So maybe there's some pieces that I can use.
I think they'll tighten up the bodies over time. You know, it's their first round out, right?
Yeah.
And they weren't horrible. Like my Mad Dog body was not as loose as like I've seen other people's, right?
Okay.
But unfortunately, I snapped his head off, which it happens. But
no, that's cool.
I threw it on there. I thought it was cool. Thought it was
no, that's a perfect use for it. I thought it looked great when I saw the picture. I was like, ooh, that's got me thinking. I think I have an extra one of those sitting around.
Yeah. And then we go on to the
are we going right into?
Yeah, it's all we got, man. It's all we got.
God, if you have a weak stomach, you may stop right here. Anybody hungry?
Man, I always forget how long of a flush that is.
Yeah, it's a long flush, man. And this week's ToyLeet or ToyLeet is brought to you by the fine folks at helladopetoys.com. This item is no longer available in their store because they are sold out. But this is the ultimate modular display for figure accessories from I just forgot the name of the company. Help me out, Travis.
Starts with an S or something, I remember.
Super Action Stuff. Thank you.
That's the one.
Super Action Stuff. So
I think those are the same guys that brought us like they
brought us the casket of cruelty and all
that
stuff. So
yeah,
this is a really cool set. That comes in a box. This isn't the full set, but this is kind of what you can do with it. It comes with these two little baskets for like storing ammo, little shells for putting on your pistols, and it comes with these clips for holding up your rifles and a bazooka. And this is just one kit, and there are some extra pieces left over that you could add on to it. But this is technically not mine. It's my buddy Rob's, but I got to play with it first since he was on vacation and it came to my house. So
nice.
So that is definitely shelf worthy. It is definitely not a floater or a flusher.
Okay, so we've got a ToyLeet. So
we got a ToyLeet.
It's our first ToyLeet accessory, I guess. At this point.
Exactly. Yeah,
as everything else has been a figure.
That's a good, valid point. Very good and valid point.
Good deal. So with
Uh,
that said, I know there's a couple of new folks that have come into
yeah,
the
let's pop
chat.
through those guys real quick. We got the beautiful one and only Cobweb Collector says, "What's up, you beautiful duo?" That's right. We are the beautiful dynamic
Thank you.
duo. And we got the Black Knight in the house saying, Northern
What's
Nomad,
up?
what's up, sucker?
Good deal. Good deal.
And
Aaron,
Joe G is here. What's up, Joe? Thanks for popping by.
I'm wearing this one for you, Aaron, because I know you love this guy.
Yeah. And Punk says, "Oh, that's one fist figure that's got a good buck." Yeah,
That's rough. That's rough.
that's a little rough. That's Punk for you. And
Yeah. Hey, he
Robert
doesn't pull
Infinite
punches.
Realms is here. Evening, guys.
What's
One
up,
of the
Rob?
lucky winners of the Hella Dope giveaway on Sunday night. He is the lucky enough to bring home the Father Christmas from Figura Obscura from the Four Horsemen. And
Great figure.
I
Great figure.
believe it's this CM Punk. Yep. And that is it.
Awesome. So, I mean, with that said, we'll jump right into our main topic stuff, right? So, like,
Yeah.
going to the slide deck this week, we're going to be talking iconic toy wars, the biggest rivals in toy history. So, I will preface this with the statement that this will include some very well-known toy rivalries. Some we'll talk a little bit more about, some we're not as close to, so we won't be able to dig into them, but we wanted to highlight them. And then there's some ones that are kind of like toy rivalries right now, right? Like, a few of the bigger independent lines that are out there that are, either competing with the big boys or trying to compete with the big boys. And some of the ones that are kind of like, just coming out to compete with some already established mainstay players. So we'll definitely be talking about that. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and hit this up.
In the world of toys, legends clash. G.I. Joe and Star Wars, a legacy so vast. Barbie and Bratz, fashion's fierce fight. Lego and Mega Bloks, building dreams in the night. Iconic toy wars, battles of old. Stories of rivals, the tales retold. Market fights, fan delight. In the world of toys, shining bright. G.I. Joe versus Action Force, soldiers of might. Mythic Legions and Savage Crucible, fantasies light. Marketing wars, strategies bold. Each brand the story waiting to be told. Iconic toy wars, battles of old. Stories of rivals, the tales retold. Market fights, fan delight. In the world of toys, shining bright. G.I. Joe versus Action Force, soldiers of might. Mythic Legions and Savage Crucible, fantasies light. Marketing wars, strategies bold. Each brand a story waiting to be told. See little battles waged in store aisles and ads. Cultural impacts, making kids glad. Collector's pride, loyalty stand in this epic showdown. Who will command? ToyLeet Takeover, the latest craze. Mr. Wundrful and Akxion Figs leading the blaze. Fans unite in passion and cheer for their chosen brand they hold dear. Iconic toy wars, battles of old. Stories of rivals, the tales retold. Market fights, fan delight. In the world of toys, shining bright. You're either with us or against us, it's clear. Like, subscribe, and share the show, let's hear. Uncover the history, feel the thrill of iconic toy wars and rivalries that still shape the market, the industry's heart. In the world of toys, each battle a work of art.
Can you hear me, Ed?
I can hear you, but I can't see us.
Awesome. Awesome. Good deal. Good deal. Sorry. Yeah, just trying to get my screens in order here. Yeah, no, I think that's what we're going to be talking about. And one of the things I saw in the chat, which I totally didn't think about as we were putting this together, was the Thundercats AWOC comparison, which I think would have been an awesome one.
Yep.
I definitely missed the opportunity to do that. So
I
good
can't
call out
believe
there,
you missed
Rob.
the Lightning Pussies against the Thundercats.
Yeah, I didn't. What? I don't know that one.
That's what Brick called the AWOC a long time ago. Was
Oh no, I didn't know that. I
Lightning
didn't
Pussies,
know
yeah.
that. No, that's awesome. Yeah, so kind of going into the next piece here.
By the creek where the water flows, we're shouting out to those who know. Spreading joy, sharing love, ToyLeet fam, you rise above. Shout out from the creek, you're the best. Hype up the heroes who passed the test. Community stars shining bright, lifting each other.
So before we go into this one, I just want to say, personally, I vehemently disagreed with this. I was in zero support of this, and I think it's the worst one we've ever done. Do you want to do the intro, Ed?
I'm ready to go, man. This week's shout out from the crick is the one and only Ken from Toy Connections. I know he's your rival. I know that you guys have a thing where you want to drop each other, super kick each other through the window. But Ken is a good dude. He's got some amazing toy history videos that he does. Production quality is top notch. Always bringing around other people from the community that, are subject experts. And, Ken's out there with everybody. He comes down to the clubhouse with us Saturday nights, always hanging out. He tries to pop into, our chat and Punk's chat and Hella Dope and all them guys. So, yeah, if you guys haven't followed Ken yet, head on over to Toy Connections on YouTube. And I believe he's the same name on IG. So give him a sub, give him a follow, and check out some of his history videos because they are some really good quality stuff with lots of good information. He has the whole stretch of Real American Hero, a couple of Masters of the Universe. Him and I just did one with Largo and Toy Sorceress from Toy Habits on the G.I. Joe Adventure Team. So yeah, good guy, good videos to watch. So go on over there and give him a follow. So shout out to you, Ken. We love you, brother.
Super kicks to you, Ken, as
Well,
I say.
I love you. Travis wants to kick you.
No. Echo everything Ed said. From the moment I met Ken, and I think we jumped into a chat, and we've just had this fun, Heart versus the real Heartbreak Kid, controversy. So ton of respect for him. And not only does he have some really cool toy stuff, but he also talks about pro wrestling in some of his streams, and those are awesome too.
Yeah, that one he did on the Von Erich was amazing. So
yeah,
definitely. Yep.
Yeah, no, definitely a great channel to subscribe to if you haven't and support him. Co-creator, producer of D17, also correct? Did I lose Ed? I think so. Yep, we're losing Ed. He'll be back. So with that said, I'll go ahead into the weekly news.
If I'm going to do this, I'll need my news team at my side.
Sorry, I kind of froze up there.
No, I did recognize this. I kind of kept moving along, Ed. Sorry. We may lose you from time to time, it looks like, again. I'll go right into the rest of the news, and Ed, jump in when you can. First up, new logo on here, one that I had not been including. I see you now, Ed. You're moving. Seem like you're alive. We have Armies of Ashmore. It's a new one. I wanted to include this one because I saw a recent image of this. We have the inbox image here where you can see one of the General Zeros or whatnot. This was a Kickstarter. Looks like they're coming shortly to fruition. This is kind of one of the last pieces I think they were alluding to on their post to come to the final stretch as they get ready to fulfill those orders, hopefully. So I'll follow us a little bit closer. I didn't back this one just because the line didn't fit in what I was looking for, but I thought it looked really cool. These are the ones we saw at Joe Fest, I think, right? I'm sorry, not Joe Fest, PowerCon, right, Ed? I think we saw some of these at Power.
Are these the big dinosaurs?
Yeah, these are the big dinosaurs. There's
these are the ones that these are the ones that I handled that with when I was with Punk, and the guy almost had a heart attack because I was touching his toys.
Okay.
After
Because there was
after
ones
his-
that were created by whoever makes some of the lucha wrestlers and stuff.
Yeah.
I can't think of what they're called, what the company's called, but there's ones that make something like this, and then this was the one that was on Kickstarter through,
Yep.
an independent creator, and I thought it looked really cool. The characters were really cool, just not something that I was something that I was backing at the time. No other reason than I just didn't have it.
Really,
in my,
yeah, they are really
my
cool
library.
looking figures, but
Yeah.
they're more of a dinosaur or Masters of the Universe type of line. They're bigger though, but
Yep.
they're really bright colored and they look really good, but just not my thing.
Yeah, exactly. But I'll keep people updated on the news as I see it come through. I follow it now a little bit more, so I will keep folks updated as they progress for those that are interested. Next,
Let's get brutal.
so one of the things that I think is really cool about that is I don't know if you listen to the video now and like what they have on YouTube, but they have like a "Let's Get Brutal" like that sound with somebody else who's got a way cooler voice than the audio tune thing that I use to do that. But yeah, so
I did it for
Brutal.
theirs. I did it for theirs. Let's get brutal.
I don't think you did. They named who did it, dude. they named they named an official voice guy who's officially the voice of their stuff now. So I saw it the other day. But
What a job! What a
update
job to have. I'm gonna have to talk to my
that'd be
bosses at Hella Dope, see if I could become the voice of Hella Dope Toys.
oh, that'd be cool. But I think they already have that. His name's Mothman.
I think they already got that guy.
Exactly.
He's green, he's fuzzy, smells a little bit like pine thaw.
Exactly. You have the Brutal Realm Kickstarter, guys. We got about 37 days to go. You haven't backed yet. It looks like it's at about 36,000 as of a couple hours ago when I was looking.
What is their goal?
267 backers. I think it was 160 to get, or 150. Let me
Somewhere in
double
that area,
check. It's 150 to 160,000 with each subsequent like 10,000 or so until they get to 200, being a release of an additional milestone goal there. Unlock.
It's going to be a rough. I don't think that they're going to fail, but it's going to be rough. I think.
Yeah, I'm surprised it hasn't seen more. They got
some
36.
competition right now, right? They just had the HasLab Star Wars, and they're doing everybody's been waiting on the HasLab for G.I. Joe coming out, and it's San Diego Comic-Con, so people have been saving money for that. I think towards the tail end, it'll probably pick up once everything else dies down and people decide where they're going to spend their dollars at. But
yeah, I absolutely want to see this succeed. It's one that
I'll be
very,
back
very
for
intrigued
sure.
with now. Yeah, I haven't gotten into it yet.
I don't know how
I'm gonna
deep,
back
but
it
I'm
later
definitely
this
going to
week.
back. I'm definitely going to back at least a couple of the figures. I haven't gotten.
I mean,
I'm not sure how deep.
There's not a finger that I wouldn't back to get. I would get at least one of everything based on what I've seen. But again, it depends on what they end up producing and what comes to fruition. So I'm keeping my eyes out for it. They also did just kind of start sharing some updates. They're doing some pretty frequent updates through the Kickstarter. So if you haven't followed it, get out to the Kickstarter and follow it so that you can get the most recent updates. They've got some digital renders painted. I honestly don't think this digital render does the figure,
any justice
because that character looks like he's wearing a bra, and it doesn't look as good as the characters look like actually printed and sculpted. So, this is just one of the
kind of look
images.
like he's wearing a bra. Now that you point that out,
it really does. I noticed it as I'm
I
showing
cannot
you now.
unsee that now.
Nope, agreed.
Do we have the link for this one in the description?
I don't think I do, but I can get it in there.
All right, we'll put it in there later then.
Yeah. The next one is Four Horsemen. They made an announcement today. Ed, you were on the news. You were my, in the streets reporter today to pull this one together for me because I totally missed it. But Four Horsemen has announced celebration of their 25th anniversary, and specifically the 10 years of Mythic Legions, that they're going to be running a special in-stock sale on their horseman.com starting on Friday the 26th. So just a few days from now. And for the first time ever, it's going to be a surprising new figure, the Skeleton Legion Builder 2. So you can see a couple of photos, one that shows, the Legion Builder with a few different poses. And then, what I picked was the coolest looking pose, I thought, which was this fairly decently
they're only going to
articulated
be
one.
$26, I want to say, 26 or $27. So
And I'm not a skeleton guy, but
You got to get up for your Conan figure, dude.
I do have Conan over there, and right now he's trying to save whatever that one guy's name is from all the
I
other
believe
lizards.
in the announcement they also said they were going to be running an in-stock sale along.
Yeah, it's an
conjunction with this
in-stock
thing.
sale. Sorry, it is an in-stock sale, and then they're including for the first time ever a surprise new figure, which is this skeleton one. So yeah, this will be going up on Friday. I don't know if there was a time listed from what I saw.
Yeah, Robert
but
just asked. Maybe Joe knows. Joe, do you know? Whoops, this Joe. Joe, do you know how long? Is it just for the weekend or is it a week? Do you know how long the in-stock sale is going on for? Sure, throw it up in the chat if you do, brother.
Cobb, I love it. I love it.
What is he saying?
We're
all a skeleton guy on the inside. That's valid.
I mean,
that math.
That math adds up and it spells success. So
that's right.
I'm going with it. Yes, that was a Steiner reference for those following along. The next one is going to be 11 a.m. Thank you, Matt. Fish toys. A little bit updates from Fish Toys. So these are some images. These may have been out before I even saw the horses and shared that stuff and the different things that they have. But what I did see was some. Oh, what did Joe say? Looks like a week.
He said it's usually a week, but
last.
It also depends on how long the supplies last. So
yeah, those skeletons I don't expect to last just because it's a new release, and I think that's going to bolster up people's jump into the in-stock sale real quick.
I think they said they're going to have a limit on it for the first part of the sale too. So
otherwise,
good. People would be buying 100 of them. So.
Right.
Those crazy Mythic Legions collectors,
crazy fans, the cabal.
Yeah.
Fish toys.
A
couple images I saw that as I was digging into these a little bit more. So this is the mount. You have this wolf in black right now, but it has armor too, where you can see in this image, you've got one where it looks like it's like a reddish brown and silver, and then you have a black and brown looking one, or black and gold one, I'm sorry. And obviously doesn't come with the large orc looking character that 5K Toys and those guys sell on their site. But the mount I thought was an interesting one. I didn't see a ton of the additional articulation like I've seen on things like the horses and other things, but I was definitely looking at this going, man, they're going to kill me just in mounts alone.
Oh, yeah.
With all the stuff that I'm seeing.
Yeah, their horses that we featured last week, and then these mounts, and they have a couple other ones coming out. Yeah.
Well, then there's so much. They got
so
many mounts.
Saber-tooth cat looking thing coming out.
Well, the Saber-tooth that we've been shown before. I think that's not by Fish Toys. It's by
but Fish Toys, I believe, is doing a Saber-tooth as well.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Man. I think this one, I thought I saw, it was like $99 is the rough price on this. I don't necessarily want it for the armor and stuff. I just want it for the mount. But, be cool if they offered with armor without to save a few dollars, because I would definitely go without the armor. But either way, it looks pretty badass. And I could definitely see it being a Savage World commodity in my world. Next, we're going to be introducing a new logo. And I don't even know if it's the right logo, but it's what I found. And it's the Book of Jacob Kane, which is not a toy, not yet at least, but it's a comic by someone within the Brotherhood, right? Like the community here. This is from
a couple of guys within the Brotherhood.
Why can I not think of his name?
Quentin J. Bedwell. And
Thank you.
Cato.
That's the name. I knew Quentin's. It was Cato I couldn't think of. So Cato, he and Quentin are working on this. This was announced about a week or so ago. You started seeing Cato post some things on Facebook and Instagram. And then additionally, on Sunday night on the Hell Dope Toy shows, they had Quentin on, and he was talking about things and, highlighted that, there's potential opportunity for a toy line. Main focus is this comic or this, series of comics, many stories. But one of the things we'll be following, this goes back to that toy adjacent, right? Maybe there's a toy line that comes out down the future. Maybe there's not. And it's just a cool lore, comic, with its own unique spin twist to it. So a couple images from that and just something I thought
definitely sounds really, really cool. And the art is amazing. So yeah, I'm definitely all in on this.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple images here that have been shared. This is one of the females. I can't remember her name. But this I think is Jacob Kane based on what was said on Sunday. So looking forward to seeing how this proceeds to come out and where they go to. There's still yet to be determined.
I think that guy is actually the villain.
Oh, okay. I missed that totally.
Yeah. And then the Jacob Kane doesn't look much different, but I think
Okay.
that's the villain.
Okay, cool. Yeah, all new. Just
Yeah.
kind of getting into it. Like they haven't announced whether it's gonna be a Kickstarter or it's gonna be a full blown just pre-order situation or Indiegogo, whatever it's called, and one of their options. But definitely, I'll keep this. Keep the news on this coming as they continue to share. It'll definitely be something that's on my radar because, however, I got to get it. I'm going to get it because I want this artwork because Quentin has what I would say is one of the coolest artists, styles that I've, new artist styles that I found in a while. Love what he's done with Action Farce because that's just it's a comical one that I enjoy. But yeah, looking forward to seeing what else comes from this. Next up is Valiverse. Just a couple images from a post that I saw this afternoon. It looks like some in-package stuff from their upcoming wave. I think this is wave 5 if I have my numbers correct.
Yes,
so you
wave
can
5.
see wave 5. You could also see some of the future re-releases. You can see that trigger up there.
Yeah,
you can see
triggers in the
packs.
top there.
Interesting to see more of the card backs here that they have. Definitely looks like they're getting for retail. So very interested. Some of it looks like it's just sample cardboard, right? And then the other ones in the back, you can actually see some of what is like a generic artwork for that blue and black Action Force with the prints on it. And additionally, there was this one that I think I may have missed. There was the
green Praetorian.
Praetorian, yeah. So this will be coming out. I think this was a con exclusive they're going to be doing.
Yeah, it's for one of the
for like Rhode Island or something, or one of those conventions coming up in the Northeast here soon, later in the year. I think maybe November-ish, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
That said, do you want to hit up the chat real quick? Because that's all I got for the news.
Yeah, let's hit the chat up real quick, and then we'll pop into the topic. Robert's Infinite Realms. Oh no, better tell that Skeletor to clean the bathroom. That's right, Skeletor. You go clean the bathroom up after all those barbecue Pringle chips. And speaking of that, Mothman is starting his own 1-900 number. It might just work. Savage Crucible, Man Wave is also up for pre-order. SDCC and many more. Did you see the $26 skeletons? Yes, we did see them, actually. We showed them. But yeah, that's more stuff competing with the Brutal Realm thing. That's what I was saying. I think after SDCC is over, it'll start picking up momentum once people really figure out where they're going to put their money down at, because there's just so much stuff coming at everybody nowadays. It's not even funny.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's a good call out here from Matthew. That I don't know if I've touched on it in the last couple of weeks, but Savage Crucible did, open up the pre-orders. I don't recall when the end date is. I want to say sometime at the end of August, if I remember correctly. And that makes sense, Rollcon. That's terrific on. I couldn't remember what it was.
Thanks, Rollkeeper.
Oh, okay. The Pandora is
that's for the Praetorian and the Pandora. So
okay, cool, awesome. I think that covers the chat, right?
Yep. Looks good.
Cool. So before we go into the topic, let's go ahead and give myself a breather.
In the world of toys, legends clash. G.I. Joe and Star Wars, a legacy so vast. Barbie and Bratz, fashion's fierce fight. Lego and Mega Bloks, building dreams in the night. Iconic toy wars, battles of old. Stories of rivals, the tales retold. Market fights, fan delight. In the world of toys, shining bright. G.I. Joe versus Action Force, soldiers of might. Mythic Legions and Savage Crucible, fantasies light. Marketing wars, strategies bold. Each brand the story waiting to be told. Iconic toy wars, battles of old. Stories of rivals, the tales retold. Market fights, fan delight. In the world of toys, shining bright. G.I. Joe versus Action Force, soldiers of might, Mythic Legions and Savage Crucible, fantasies light. Marketing wars, strategies bold, this brand a story waiting to be told. See little battles waged, in store aisles and ads, cultural impacts, making kids glad, collector's pride, loyalty stand in this epic showdown. Who will command? ToyLeet Takeover, the latest craze, Mr. Wundrful and Akxion Figs leading the blaze. Fans unite in passion and cheer for their chosen brand they hold dear. Iconic toy wars, battles of old, stories of rivals, the tales retold. Market fights, fan delight in the world of toys, shining bright. You're either with us or against us, it's clear. Like, subscribe, and share the show, let's hear. Uncover the history, feel the thrill of iconic toy wars and rivalries that still shape the market, the industry's heart. In the world of toys, each battle a work of art.
I got our mics back on. I did it. We're good.
Oh, we're back. Damn.
Yes, we're back, brother.
Oh shit.
Awesome.
Sorry. Kind of.
So really, we've got the topic, right? Iconic toy wars, right? The biggest rivalries in toy history. There's the song talks about it. You know, there's a ton of them. Let's talk about legendary showdowns, right? I think that's where I want to start, right?
Showdowns. Yes.
So, you know, what makes a toy rivalry, right? And what makes it iconic, right? I think, in my opinion, and where I think we start with is two toy lines that are opposing forces that force change within the environment that they're playing in. And then what I mean by that is G.I. Joe and, you know, Kenner, right? I'm sorry, G.I. Joe with Hasbro and Star Wars with Kenner, when they really were, you know, neck and neck, right? Like over the years, about 20 to 30 year span, they were kind of passing the torch from Joe to Star Wars and then back to Joe's. And they've each, you know, lived their own paths, but they've been collectively battling, you know, for the same market shares for a long, long time. Barbie, and I don't know exactly when it was. I want to say it was sometime in, you know, the early 2000s. You know, Barbie had, you know, a lot, you know, come out in the late, you know, 50s. And their competitor, which I see as their biggest competitor, which is the Bratz dolls, was the early 2000s.
Yeah, probably really didn't have. I mean, they had small little things that were competition for them, but never like a major brand. Funny enough,
I mean,
they now own Bratz, so I mean, it's all the same company, but
right. But at the time, you know, they were someone who kind of came and took the wind out from underneath the sails of Barbies, gave it a modern twist to a Barbie, a little different look and style, but something that kids could get a fresh take on. So, you know, it's those types of things. So, you know, when we think of this, we have, you know, a couple key ones from the legendary showdowns. This is the history of toys, right? You know, G.I. Joe and Star Wars, right? You know, Hasbro launched in 1964. Star Wars figures kicked off in 1977. So Joe and Hasbro, they had the market for the better part of 13 years or so, right? And you know, when Star Wars came in, and I wasn't even around at this point, I was still a concept in the back of my dad's mind, you know, at this point. But when these, you know, when Kenner launched the Star Wars, you went from 12-inch figures down to pocket-sized playthings, right? Like 3.5, 3.25-inch toys, right?
The 3 3/4-inch figures were started like with the Micronauts and the Fisher Price Adventure People stuff, and a lot of the shrinking of the figures had to do with the cost of rubber and gasoline and plastic and all that other fun stuff. Star Wars definitely took the world by surprise with this the love of everything to do with sci-fi and space that it created. Right before that, it was very much superheroes and soldiers, those type of toys, and then Star Wars hit, and it was space, sci-fi, futuristic stuff from that point on. So,
you know, and we were recently on Rick's show where we talked about military line focused figures. So I got a wealth of knowledge of the Joe line pre, American Hero stuff that I would have been more familiar with. So, I saw what those 12-inch figures could be and what their accessories or playset like things came to. But I think when we really think about Star Wars, one of the things that helped them really kind of take the lead to a large degree right there, right, from Joe for a period of time, was their play sets, the iconic ones like the Death Star and the Millennium Falcon, right? Like that really was like, a haymaker to kind of throw Joe aside.
That was kind of the the Fisher Price Adventure people. They had a ton of awesome vehicles. Some of it would be considered kind of a playset, but mostly vehicles, lots of them, right? And in that scale, vehicles are a hell of a lot easier to make. When your vehicle's the size of what used to be the standard action figure size, and that's your vehicle, it makes it a lot easier to do. I mean, the Death Star in reality was a big playset, but it's not that big for what it is. You know what I mean? For three or four layers of a space station and all the stuff that it had, it's really not that big of a playset for holding as much as it did because of the scale. So that's what really, and of course the movie didn't hurt things any, and all the marketing that was done around the toys. I mean, most of us around that age, I was 5 years old and I had Star Wars figures before I ever even laid eyes on the Star Wars film and knew all about the characters and everything else from the books and the coloring books and the action figures. So a lot of us had Star Wars toys before we even saw Star Wars. Loved it even before we knew what it was. We loved it. So
yeah, and I think a lot of things go into this, right? Number of factors which we can dig into deeper at other times, and we've touched on them in past and whatnot. But Joe was going from the realistic, fighting of real people, right, to Star Wars, which was fantasy. It was a space fantasy, and as a result, it was a lot easier to adapt and let kids get into it, right, and feel comfortable as you had more of that approach. But one of the things from these is that there was a ton of influence that occurred here, right? When you look at this war between the two companies, there was and it's funny because they're now owned by the same company, right? Just like you said with Barbie and Bratz, right? Star Wars. And I say own. They produce the toys, right?
Yeah, Hasbro bought.
Hasbro does. Yeah, and then they bought Joe, right? They bought the Joe IP at some point, right? And they took that over. Or did Hasbro? I'm sorry. Yes,
Hasbro created Joe.
Hasbro created Joe. Yeah, they have that.
Hasbro.
But now they also have Star Wars.
Hasbro passed on the deal for Star Wars. Funny enough, and then Kenner said, "Yeah, we'll do it." And then later on in life, when Kenner was starting to die, Hasbro bought them in order to get all the IPs, because during the late 70s and 80s, man, Kenner had some awesome IPs, So it was like,
yeah. Well, the piece here is that I was getting to is that Joe was so large. Then, if you listen, I've listened to some different channels and listened to some podcasts around the history of G.I. Joe and how it came to fruition to be that 3.75 scale as opposed to the 12-inch and prior sizes. A large part of it was how do we reinvoke the consumer into this product while there's someone like Star Wars at the forefront. And they went with the combination of the comic and cartoon and the toys, right? And they started bringing that to fruition in that 3.75 scale, and that really became the battle between the two of them. And for a long time, Star Wars somehow, even though I don't remember. I don't know. I don't have it in front of me right now. The last year, the original Star Wars trilogy came out. What year was that? Do you know that? Ed?
Return of the Jedi was out in 1983.
Okay, so 83, and then Joe came with a 3.75 scale was in the 80s also, right? So right around that time frame.
The original Joe actually launched in 1983.
Right. So you have that time period, and then what you end up having is a situation where Joe continued to produce material for quite some time there, right? But somehow Star Wars still stayed active, kept consumers engaged, and was producing Star Wars figures for as long as I can remember, from the, as a kid, they were still on the shelf. You saw the Power of the Force stuff.
Yeah, Star
stuff
Wars did things
in
like
the
they tried
90s.
to stay relevant by making a couple of cartoons. There was Star Wars Droids and Star Wars the Ewok Adventure cartoons or whatever they were. Then there was two made for TV movies about the Ewoks, which was the Battle for Endor, and I can't remember the other one, but so they tried to stay relevant. But like I said, a lot of us that were in that time frame loved the characters and loved the toys even before we knew what they were. So loving them after there was no movies wasn't even a big deal, right? We just, and Hasbro or Kenner was smart, right? They kept making characters from the shows and the movies that were still not made because they had such a, humongous range of characters, right?
Yeah. And, the big thing for me is that the influence, or I guess not influence, but the strategies that they leveraged to market these, right, was through, commercialization, lore, as you alluded to, right? How deep was the lore? How many characters were there? How many characters deep could you go into releasing things for Star Wars, or potentially, G.I. Joe coming out with different things like Tiger Force and other variants of those figures. And they did that, and they stayed, and they were neck and neck and continue to compete for and they still compete for market share, even though they're both being managed by Hasbro as far as the toys, right? There's collectors of both, but there's also people who are diehard Star Wars and diehard Joes, and they're constantly competing. And when Star Wars came out with that 6-inch scale figure line, that was a big jump because you had a lot of collectors that were focused on that 3.75, and only recently, in the last 4 or 5 years, did we get that 6-inch scale Joe within the Joe scale. So Joe, again, coming out, seeing Star Wars being produced at that 6-inch scale, said, "Hey, let's see what we can do." And they're producing those now, and they're doing a great job, in my opinion. But those are, that's a big iconic war, right? Like, were you a Joe or were you a Star Wars character, fan? And being honest, in the early '80s, I'm sure there was definitely crossover of fandom, but there was probably some bias, right? There was.
I think there was a lot of crossover as fandom went back then, just because in the '80s, especially the early '80s through later mid '80s, there was so many toys in the toy line or in the toy aisle. I mean, and they were all the same scale, right? Except for Masters of the Universe. I mean, G.I. Joe, Adventure People, Star Wars, Micronauts, a whole bunch of them were all on that same scale. So it was really easy to just throw everything together. Flash Gordon figures were 3 3/4 inch, right? So it was easy to throw all those figures together. I mean, I played with all of them together. It was never like, oh, well, G.I. Joe, you go over here and Star Wars is going to be over here. I mean, it's just wasn't done that way.
And I mean, I guess they're, we're talking, where I've grown up and I've seen much more, what would the word be? There's a word that people use for it, but it's that pack mentality, right? It's like, you kind of own your group and whatnot. And I kind of picture like a difference in the collector of a Joe fan in the 80s and a Star Wars fan in the 80s could often be two uniquely different people, right? There's the realistic Joe fan, and then there's the Star Wars fan. Though Joe had a lot of fantasy aspects to it too, with Cobra and
the funny thing
like
is there's a lot of guys that were collecting that were diehard comic book Joe guys and didn't even care about the cartoon, which is another
that makes sense. Yeah,
another iconic battle. It's like, I didn't like the cartoon, but I love the comic books. That's why I collected G.I. Joe. Well, I never read the comic book, but I watched the cartoon. That's why I collected the Joe figures, right? It's like,
So I mean, that's the Joe and the.
Hold on a second, real quick.
The Star Wars. Yep.
Thanks, Scott, for coming by, man. Have a great night at work, brother.
Thank you. And then it kind of brings me back to the Barbies and Bratz, right? Like we said, just before the 60s, Barbie came out, was first launch. And then, what essentially ends up being almost 40 plus years later, or just over 40 years later, Bratz comes out to be, in my opinion, the closest thing to a competitive, product. So Barbie held stake for a long time, in that, not trying to sound archaic, but what was traditionally perceived as a girl's toy line.
Well, hey, in the 60s, G.I. Joe, Hasbro, released a G.I. Joe nurse to try and gain some of that popularity of Barbie in the 60s, right? It was a disaster because the figure was horrendous looking, right? And since it was labeled G.I. Joe, the stores ended up putting it into the girl aisle, but none of the girls wanted it. But it was, it was a doll, so none of the guys wanted it for GI Joe. So stores were really torn, and they didn't really sell any, and a lot of them probably ended up in landfills and everything else.
I
And
bet you
that's
that
why that
thing's
figure's
worth
worth
some
a lot
mighty
of money.
money.
But there's
Yep.
also other female dolls that came out. The 12-inch fashion dolls, and
Yep.
none of them could touch Barbie. Mattel had cornered that market in ways not really seen before with any other toy line ever.
Yeah, and I mean, their target audience was obviously girls, and then
Yep.
trying to get the young girls into dolls and dressing them up and playing house with their dolls and
Yep,
the
living the dream
accessories.
life.
Barbies were fashionable dolls with a centralized focus on their careers and lifestyles. They had nurses, doctors, teachers, whatever other bakers, whatever other at the
Yep.
time was an appropriate career path. And when Bratz came out, it was much more fashion forward dolls with an edgier style to them, right? Kind of like the badass Barbie, as I would refer to it. I remember seeing them, because my oldest son, was born in '03. So, in the early 2000s, I saw this stuff on the shelves as I was walking towards the stuff I was looking for. And I saw them, those aren't Barbies. Like, those are some badass Barbies. And then kind of had that goth early 2000s look.
I think one of the things that made Bratz successful was that Barbie was always like I don't want to say older woman, but she had a career most of the time or was living a life most of the time, right? Whereas Bratz were kind of centered around like seniors, freshmen of college type age, right?
Socialites, like influencer, almost like dolls.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
it kind of
absolutely.
was popular at the time, right? When that's what really made them successful. And it was a whole new, like you said, it was a whole new vibe for a fashion doll, right?
Well, yeah, and it was something that wasn't your mom's toy, right? Like I think of it like that. It was like for a kid, and remember, I don't care if it's a girl or a boy, they all try to rebel to some degree against their parents. And when mom's like, "Oh, check out this Barbie," if mom was a Barbie collector, and then the daughter's like, "No, mom, there's this other thing that you don't know anything about, and since you don't know anything about it, I want to be about it." And that was just an opportunity for Bratz to seize an entirely new, market, and not an entirely market, but an entirely new generation of kids to to a toy line. There were some legal battles. Oh, go ahead.
The MGA company that made Bratz also did some new things with like the way the shoes went on, right? They were like popped into the bottom of the legs, and some of the ways the clothes went together and things like that. Things that Mattel basically did Barbie pretty much the same way from the beginning until late in the game, right? When Bratz came out, they started changing up some of the way they were designing characters, giving them better articulation and things like that. But they stayed the same pretty much from the 60s on through, whereas when Bratz came out and tried some new things. So that also, helped. And like Allison said right here, was they were relatable to the urban market, which was they had a lot of diversity, right? There was more than just Skipper and Barbie, and I don't know any of the things about Barbie because it's my sister's thing.
Yeah, but I think with the Bratz, the one thing that probably hurt them to some degree was the name. I know personally from having 3 nieces that are right around my son's age, would have been peak time to get these when they were first coming out. My sister-in-law wouldn't touch them because she thought they were sassy and nasty and didn't like the attitudes that they portrayed on the boxes and stuff. Not that she got her kids into Barbies; they were mostly big into those whatever those really expensive horses.
The Breyer horses.
Yeah, they got really into the Breyer horses. They would go to Breyer Fair down in like Kentucky once a year. So like they didn't go to that, but I can tell you for full certainty that there was no Bratz toys being purchased for that household because the mother, my sister-in-law, had felt that they were a little too pompous or sassy attitudes, and didn't feel like it was the role model type character that you would maybe want your kid playing with. So it was a different, edgier style, as they alluded to. They did face some legal battles due to the design similarities, which is like it's a doll. It's a 12-inch female doll, but there was some issues with the market competition there. And then, there obviously was an impact on Barbie's market share because it was someone having to jump in. And I think at the end of the day, you can just simply allude it to, how Barbie adapted. They freaking bought them.
Yeah.
It took them over. Like end of story, Barbie wins. That war settled, right? I would say with Star Wars and G.I. Joe, we can't necessarily declare a winner because I think they're both kicking pretty strong. at this point. I don't think either one is going to die anytime soon. I mean, there's been some epic failures on both parts from, other
Yeah,
media
GI
outlets
Joe
like
and
Direction.
GI Joe and Star Wars have kind of done, the overlap thing for as long as they're out. Like, it's
Exactly.
for a while GI Joe's on top, and then Star Wars takes over, then they fall and come back up, and yeah, it's been a up and down battle for them too forever. Let's say hi to a couple of people real quick that have popped in here.
Sir.
We brought one of her comments up, but greetings, Allison. Thanks for coming by.
Hey, Allison.
And I agree, Briscoe, the Ewok movies are definitely underrated. And Bjorn Jorgensen's here. He's saying Schmebulak. Thanks, Bjorn, for coming by. And what's this? Bratz was... No, that's not the one I wanted to show. This one. Nope. Let me just find the one I wanted. There we go. So thanks, Allison, because she definitely knows her history. Kenner did do Dusty
solid.
and Darcy in the 70s trying to compete, but Strawberry Shortcake at a smaller scale was Kenner's first success with dolls.
Good call out there. She also said, Mattel is too happy over anything that feel even remotely infringes on their brand. Yeah, that's an interesting one there.
Yep.
Then it kind of takes me to Lego versus Mega Bloks. To me, that's a huge one, right? And for me as a kid, Lego was the premier product, and Mega Bloks was like the cheap knockoff that like couldn't really hold, like, you couldn't merge them. They didn't always click together properly. You're fighting to get those Legos together. But Lego's been around since 1932, and continues to hang tough, right? Like they've got every IP across them you could think of. And then, Mega Bloks, came out in the 60s, I think around 67 or so, to kind of come into that block, into that competitor space, with the block toys construction. I think most fondly of the Mega Bloks right around the early 2000s, mid 2000s, when my son was getting to a point where he started playing with Legos. Legos had a few IPs. They were playing with the Batman DC stuff for a little bit, and Mega Bloks seemed to get a couple real key IPs. Like for me, it was like Halo, and I want to say at one point they had some Marvel stuff, or they had some comic thing. I can't remember exactly, but they did have some things.
The funny part is that Lego was actually on the verge of bankruptcy until somehow or other they hooked up with some licenses, and then all of a sudden now they're just, now they're
because
dominating
every license that's there, right? They have their own stores in the malls with things. I think my son got the Bat Cave, like a really high end one last year. He wanted for Christmas, so he got that and built that. It's really cool. But like they do such. It's like if I had the money and the time, and I wasn't into like fully articulated figures, Legos would be the way to go. But generally speaking, the comparisons between them, they're basically the same thing. But somehow, some way, they're just slightly different. I mean, it's been years since I've held both side by side. I don't think I've had Mega Bloks since like maybe 2010-ish time frame with the Halo stuff. Like they just never work together seamlessly, which for me, if you got Bloks, you want them to be able to work together. So it was very difficult to combine them. But what Mega Bloks offered was very, very competitive pricing. They also offered unique sets like Halo, which you could not get. And for me, I was a huge Halo nerd in the early 2000s, straight through Halo 3. I think that's about the time I dropped off. But, Lego, Star Wars, Harry Potter, Marvel, DC, like
some of those sets Lego has out now are incredible. They have like working radios and guitars you can actually play and all sorts of.
Well, they even got it to like they, in my opinion, have crushed it and really taken ownership on the Joe. That's awesome. I'm gonna have to come and we're gonna have a Lego play date sometime. We'll have to figure that one out.
Joe says Lego is cool, but Mega Bloks Halo is the stuff.
Yeah. I wish Lego had gotten Halo because I think they would have done it even better, in my opinion. That's just because Lego's like what I have the majority of. So it's easier to build things with it because we have so many of them. But for me, like I thought Lego nailed it when they started doing things like the sneakers and like the models. Like not even just like they have like Friends sets, they have Seinfeld sets, they have all that stuff. I'm not talking Friends where they tried to like get into the female marketplace of Legos, like with the more feminine color schemes and things like that. I'm talking like the Friends TV show, The Office, like different things like that they started to come out with, Seinfeld. But additionally, like I thought they were smart. They came out with like, for someone as a kid who loved model cars, and my dad got me into that at a young age, the model ships, things like that, right? Legos were always a plaything to me, but now you see these very high-end, expensive model kits basically that
yeah.
are Legos,
Yep.
which are a hell of a lot easier to do than gluing and using microscopes and not microscopes.
Yeah.
What is it? Like, maybe it is a microscope. No, not a microscope. One of the glasses. I can't think what it's called, but being able to sit there and
Magnifying
extra
glass?
light. Thank you, magnifying glass. That's what I was trying to think of. Yeah, so a magnifying glass and trying to upscale, and put these little pieces together. So Legos, I think, crushed it there.
Oh yeah.
They've continued to, maintain the marketplace dominance, and Megabot continues to find ways to, strategically compete and stay relevant enough to have the Halo or some other IP that keeps at least a niche of people going to them.
Yeah.
But I mean, they've been around. I mean, Lego's been there nearly 100 years at this point. We're on the 90-year, we're at 92-year mark at this point with them, and they've held the trophy for quite some time. And I mean, until Mega Bloks sells out to them, or doesn't, I fully expect Lego to continue to lead the way at this point.
Yeah.
They have so many IPs across their brands and their own things. They have Ninja Go, and they had the movies that came out, and now the association with Star Wars to have the Star Wars Lego video games. They've just owned it so well. That's going to bring me kind of to one of the next couple things I want to talk about, which they might not be seen so much as the legendary showdowns, right? But there are some things that are in our brotherhood, our community now that we're seeing, right? So one of them is G.I. Joe versus Action Force. That's a huge one right now, right?
Yeah.
There's so many people that are Joe Bros or Action
Valashills or
Force,
whatever the hell
Valashills, whatever they want to call them.
Yeah.
And Valaverse is the brand or the company that snagged up a couple trademarks and such that were hanging out there free to grab. I don't want to say free to grab, but readily available to those that wanted to jump on it, and they took it forward. I know a lot of people will crap on that idea. In my opinion, that is no different than Hasbro buying up all the IPs and hoarding them from people. This person just happened to find out there was one available and went ahead and did it. And what I would say is, you have two action figure military lines that, let's be completely honest, just looking at that window of time where we're talking 6-inch scale, because that's really what this is about, is the 6-inch scale figures. You've got the Joes that were coming out with a Fortnite-like approach to them. Ones that not a lot of people like.
Let's clarify that we're talking G.I. Joe Classified series. And,
yes.
And
Action Force Valaverse series.
Modern Action Force Valaverse.
Yep.
Yes.
Exactly. Those two toy lines within the last 5 years, let's just use that window, right? Basically COVID figures, as we'll refer to them. Because it's really about the time everyone was getting into them. Joes were hard to find on the shelves. And when you did find them, for the traditionalists, they didn't like what they were seeing. They like the idea of the 6-inch scale figures because you can see, and you and I have talked about this a number of times, seeing 6-inch scale figures sitting on my shelf looks a heck of a lot better than 3 1/4 or 3 3/4 or 4-inch stuff, just because you can see more detail from a distance. So if you're one of those shelf collectors, you can see it. Whereas with the those smaller ones, it's a little harder to see. It's not as clean and as cool, doesn't stand out as much. So the 6-inch definitely hit home with people, but unfortunately, being honest, Hasbro dropped the ball out of the gate. Though Valaverse came out with their Action Force, and they did a great job for a first to the market, time.
It's sad because since the end of the G.I. Joe Adventure Team in the 70s, there was a little bit of a blip, and then they did the run of the Real American Hero. Since that point, Hasbro has never been good at figuring out how to manage G.I. Joe, right? They come out with some releases. Sometimes they are okay. Sometimes they're just not accepted at all. Like the Sergeant Savage line they did. And then they had the couple other ones, and it's like when Hasbro started with the classified, they're, let's release these figures using, the original characters, but give them an upgraded or updated design, right? Cool in concept, poorly executed. And then on top of that, the logistics issues that follow.
Yeah, and I
They've
think you're
lost the
cutting out a little bit,
licenses,
Ed.
like Robert says, right? They had the opportunities to get all these licenses, but not only did they lose the license for the Action Force, which is technically owned by Palatoy in the UK, they didn't, keep the Steel Brigade license. Like some of the characters you see now, they're called like Stalker. He's called by his official name with Stalker in the middle of it because they lost the rights to actually, the Stalker name. So it's like,
Because they didn't produce stuff over a period of time.
yeah,
It's
they
Nemesis,
didn't keep
right?
the
Like
license up to date,
Nemesis
right?
had an
Like,
issue. They didn't
yep,
maintain their ownership of things. It's funny,
yeah,
those folks, and this isn't me dogging on Hasbro. It's almost comical to me that you have a company so big that you decided to go out and buy all these other things up that you might do something with or you might not do something with, but you forgot to keep your house taken
yeah,
care of
yep.
and lock down the things that you might potentially want to touch on.
I
That
I
said,
honestly think that Hasbro just thought they were so big that no one was ever going to touch them. Is really what I
yeah,
think.
which is great because what that led to is what we're seeing now, which is
Yep.
innovation and consumer benefit,
Yeah,
right? At the end of the day,
absolutely.
like, and this goes back to this whole battle, right? It's so controversial to you got to be a Joe Bro or a, you've got to be a Valish. You could just be a fan of action figures and enjoy it.
Right.
There's no reason to
Choose a
dog on
side.
one or the other.
Yep.
I mean, you can complain about both as a constructive criticism. And
Yeah.
here's the thing: because you do have these two distinct parties complaining about one another, they're actually benefiting from it because every complaint that comes from the Vala side, every complaint that comes from Hasbro side, forces the other person, the other group, to reflect on it and try to innovate. Point taken. When Hasbro came out with their Joes, they came out with that Fortnite approach. It was not what the market wanted.
Nope.
That was seen, right? People bought it because they wanted their Joes and it was a weird time.
Yeah.
I think if it wasn't COVID and we didn't deal with any of that, you would have seen a lot of peg warming Joes
Oh, for
in
sure.
that
Yeah.
original thing. Because people complained about it even though they bought it because they
Yep.
wanted something. Good thing they
Yeah.
did because it kept them bringing things to market. But
Yeah.
what it
I
did
mean,
was
there's
Valaverse was able to come
everybody
with theirs.
says there's a lot of people that will sit there and it's the Hasbros, right? That are Bobby, did all this stuff and is doing all these new things because of Hasbro. And then you got the other side that says, oh, Hasbro's doing all this stuff, right? If Hasbro and Valaverse weren't competing right now for what they're competing for, we wouldn't have the stuff coming out from either of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially
Valaverse,
Hasbro because
right.
Hasbro thought they were, it's not to bash on Hasbro and the G.I. Joe team. Hasbro as a corporation thought they were the giant and no one was ever going to mess with them, right? And then all of a sudden you got Goliath going up against Davey, and Davey's poking the bear, right? And then all of a sudden Hasbro has to go, holy shit, we better step up or step out.
And additionally, going off what you're saying, right, is that Vala is being run by an individual who all his shelves he's got everything. He collects so much. His decisions are being made on his finger on the pulse. The people that are saying yes or no at Hasbro, unfortunately, they don't have their finger on the pulse in a lot of cases, hence the Fortnite initiative.
Yep.
Right? Like the first releases. Well, what they saw was that when you came out with what Valaverse did, and that struck a chord with them, goes, okay, they're reaching into my pocket. They're taking money from me. What can we do differently? We can't come out with necessarily a modern, completely figure line, moving away from even Fortnite approach. We can't just modernize everything and make it completely 2024 in that look and feel. We can't go, Iraqi war style. Like, it just wouldn't work, right? But what they could do is they could come up with a modern twist to the original, mid 80s toy line and start to bring that to market. Yeah. And that's what they did. And what they've done is continue to improve. And I won't say innovate, but they've continued to improve the product so that all of us consumers, whether you're a Valaverse fan or a Joe fan, you're getting a better product, which if Joe had not made the advancements and continued to, if Joe had just pulled after the Fortnite and Valaverse had come out, I'm sure Valaverse would have continued to produce toys. He would have continued to change and improve his things. His prices, maybe they would have come down. Maybe they would have stayed the same if the Hasbros aren't on the shelf. But that competition forced, both ways. So I'm all for these guys bickering.
Yeah.
I don't get in the middle of it because they're benefiting me. They're helping my wallet, and they're producing a product that is far more superior than what it would have been if there wasn't someone else competing with them. We would have continued to get the same thing regardless.
Oh, yeah.
You might have seen improvements. I will say that I do believe that if Hasbro had stopped and pulled the plug on the Joe line like they have the Power Rangers Lightning stuff recently, the Valaverse would have still continued to try to bring to fruition more things and continue to grow his line because he's got to. He's establishing himself. But would he be bringing things and continuing to try to impress us with better pricing and, you know, unique approaches, his own spin on things as fast or as frequently as he is? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But
I don't think
we're all
I don't
benefiting
think you
from it.
see. I don't think you see Action Force what it is today if Hasbro hadn't stepped their game up.
Yeah, and you know that leads me to the next one. Which
Real
is
quick,
Mythic.
let me
Oh,
just
go for
pop
it.
this up. Army Ants, I don't know about, but Cops and Crooks are actually going to be getting made by Fresh Monkey Fiction. Fresco. They got the first character was announced at Joe Fest.
Yep. And that brings me to the next one, which is another one, which is two independent toy lines. Mythic Legions, which we talked about earlier, bringing some news to fruition there. They're celebrating 25 years as a company, 10 with their Mythic Legions specifically. 10-year anniversary coming up. And then you have Savage Crucible. And those two lines are both fantasy-driven 6-inch scale figures. You know, Mythic Legions, you know, by Four Horsemen Studios is very much so known for its fantasy theme figures and also its customization options and
pop and swap. Yep.
Pop and swap, making it easy for someone who's as dumb as me to switch parts over without having to get into a ton of additional, you know, tools and sets. You can get that deep if you want, but you don't have to. So it very much so does that, you know. Savage Crucible just come to market. We just got their first wave after a very successful Kickstarter last year. We're looking at their pre-orders, which we discussed earlier. Second wave available for pre-order. Bringing to market right up until this point, Mythic Legions is just owned that fantasy 6-inch scale figure line, right? Basically, if you wanted an articulated action figure that was fantasy driven, that wasn't tied to just a Lord of the Rings movie, you know, run that they did, or something, you know, Game of Thrones by like NECA or D&D by NECA, some, you know, whatever that might be. If you wanted something that had a wide variety, Mythic Legions own that space, and they did a great job.
Oh yeah,
they established the cabal, they marketed appropriately. You know, we'll talk about that, but you know, the big thing is that Savage has now entered the fray. We've only seen one wave. There were some criticism there, but what they have in criticism in the ability to stand with their feet, which they've announced that they're going to send out swappable pieces to resolve that issue. It's gonna force Mythic Legions to up their game. I'm not saying Mythic Legions is by any sense been sitting on, you know, their heels, not doing anything, just, you know, raking in money. But there are only so many molds that Mythic Legions have come out with. A lot of that ties to their marketing and strategy approach because of the pop and swap. But one of the criticisms that I even had, and I don't even want to call it criticism, it was just one of the observations that I had for the Mythic Legions were that when I first got my very first one last summer, that it was limited in articulation. I said, "Is this all of them?" And you said to me, "Yeah, that's their stuff. It's made to be, you know, limited, you know, articulation cuts, limited, you know."
Yeah, a lot of it had to do with the pop and swap
swapping
design, and they didn't want to break the sculpts, right? Which, if you look at their sculpts, Now, have they come out with the new Knight? Drawing a blank on his actual name, but
I know you're talking about the Knight version 2 that they came out with. It's just following that new mold.
So they have improved their articulation to some degree without actually adding extra joints, which is great. Would that innovation have come out if that slight criticism wouldn't have been made? Possibly. But I think seeing what Savage Crucible was doing and some of the other guys coming out on the market with some of the articulation, maybe pushed the Four Horsemen to go faster with that, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. I also think it's going to push faster for some of the announcements. We saw that bear. We know people wanted mounts. We know people wanted unique, you know, things like that. We know people wanted, you know, I keep calling for the dragon, right? I'm interested to see what the Mythic Legions does. I think they have a vastly knowledgeable and skilled group working for them and that they work with on things. It'll be interesting to see if they deviate at all from their tried and true limited. I don't want to call it limited, but their chosen level of articulation
Yep.
for their specific need. I wonder if they go down the route of potentially coming up with some more articulating figures.
So here's
Go for
here's
it.
my thought on that. I don't think you're going to see much more articulation put into those figures than what we see with the new Knight figure,
Okay.
which should become the standard. Only because, why should they? Why do they need to? They've already got their fan base. They've
Yeah.
got diehard fans. They've got their design of the figures, right? It'd be like, people complain all the time about Super 7, but Super 7 has a diehard following. Otherwise, they wouldn't be selling figures, right? Mythic Legion sells out of every time they have, a new release, every time they have a figure obscura, every time they have a new launch, those figures sell out. So they're not going to change that. They're going to, I see them focusing more on new characters, new design elements, like you're seeing now, where they're bringing in some more like pirate style, those type of scenes. They got the Egyptian stuff that they started doing now. I think you're going to see more characters in a wider range of, instead of just being all very much, the Arthurian knights and barbarians, that kind of thing. They're starting to branch out into some, more diverse things like Persian style and Asian style
Okay.
military. And I think that's what you're going to see a lot more of, with that same design element still included as far as their articulation design.
That's interesting. That's interesting. I know that, like, in this I think a lot of this ties back to the same methodology that I wanted with Hexastack, right? If I was going to be 3D printing them, I wanted to make sure whatever gets injection molded works with the backwards compatibility, because I didn't want to try to sell somebody something that they were going to have to get a version 2 or 3 for down the road to get the better version, right? And then have to eradicate their prior purchase, right? So I, in my mind, was thinking more along the lines of, do you foresee someone like a Mythic Legions group, right? Because they are being challenged, be it a tremendous level of challenge yet or not. The Savage Crucible line is here. It's coming fast. It's a really top-notch product. I will say the paint apps, at least what I've seen, are darn near right there with the Mythic Legions. Like, they're neck and neck on all things except for the articulation, right? Like, and again, the product library that the Savage Crucible has is nowhere near what Four Horsemen is right now with the Mythic Legions. But I was thinking more along the lines of using a Mattel-like situation where the Mattel has their basic WWE figures, their elite WWE figures, and their ultimate WWE figures. I wonder if Mythics does something where they start to continue with their standard pop and swap model for the majority of their stuff, but maybe during release, they plug in 1 or 2 of this more enhanced articulated version for those to still stay with their line. It's not going to happen unless Savage Crucible is pulling money from Mythic. Mythic isn't going to change what they're doing unless they have to. I assume in that space, they're not going to invest all the money that would go into branching out to another tier line like that. They're already, exposing themselves with the Cosmic Legion brand and having to, spread that.
I can see Four Horsemen.
I think we're losing you in and out, Ed. Sorry. You there, brother?
Yeah, I cut out for it.
Yep.
I see Four Horsemen. The only way they're ever going to bring in better articulation, as far as like what is considered the standard articulation of today, right? Valorverse, G.I. Joe, those type of double elbow, double joints, all that fun stuff, right? Is if they do that in a figure obscura of some kind of assassin figure, or something along that line, or within, like you said, one figure in a wave that fits the point where they can break the molds and not have to worry about it, right? Because realistically, most of the figures they make are armored figures or something like that anyway, and the posability has not hindered any of the photography or anything like that, right? You can still
Fair
get
enough.
most of them characters in really, really good poses. It's just a matter of, like I said, though, I don't think Savage Crucible and now that you got Brutal Realms coming out are going to really have to start taking away their dollars in order for Mythic Legions to change what they're doing.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. As long as the Cabal, and then that goes back to that point of what Mythic has done great from a marketing standpoint, which kind of takes me to the next slide, is kind of the market battles, right? Like, marketing and how they approached it. And that's kind of what I wanted to kind of spin into is, how these, and we've kind of covered this to a large degree already, is, kind of discussing the rivalries and how they influenced each other or the toy markets, right? So we saw what Joe and Star Wars did. We saw what Barbie and Bratz did. We see, Mega Bloks and Legos. We talked about the more current stuff in our independent space, the space we like to play and focus on. With Valaverse and Joe, and we seeing it more with Mythic Legions and Savage now, and as you alluded to, things like Brutal Realms and the vast majority of everything else that's going to come out is kind of playing in that space. And Valaverse is going to have place. Vala and Joe are going to have the Patriot Force. They're going to have Monster Force. They're going to have all these other things in that same space that they're playing in, and they're going to cause innovation, and kind of help shape that. So I think we see what Joe and Action Force did, and we saw what the predecessors did with all of those larger, rivalries that we saw for decades, right?
Yep.
And now we're sitting right now in a moment, we're watching these other rivalries like Joe and Hasbro and Monster Force and there's other ones that are going to compete with each other. We're going to watch that develop over the next couple of years, and we're seeing that with Savage and Four Horsemen. It'll be interesting to see, because what Four Horsemen has done, and we've alluded to this and talked about this at some degree over the course of the show since its inception, is that Mythic Legions is a case study on how to make your community or your brotherhood or your group, your cabal, feel so ingrained in part of your business that it goes beyond just the plastic in the packaging and so many other things.
Yeah.
So they've done such a good job with that, but they did it, and this isn't criticism, they did it when there wasn't anyone else in the market pushing them and pushing the boundaries. They own the space and nobody touched it. There is now someone that's knocking at the door that's going to be playing in that space with them. And I love it, because for me, now I can pick and choose which mythics I want, which Savage figures I want. I don't have to feel like I need to go all in on a Mythic Legions wave, because there's, I got to get all of it. I can kind of like go, I want the bear, I want this one. So it'll be interesting over the course of the next couple of years to see how this plays out, because, Mythic Legions has a head start. They have a vast library, but could that vast library, because they're so ingrained in that pop and swap model, could it impact them? And could it allow someone like Savage Crucible, who have shown that you can produce a figure line with a larger level of articulation, with the same level of paint apps and detail? Haven't seen as much, in the way of, fabric goods like Mythic Legions does. I'm sure that's to come. I would assume that's to come from Savage once they've owned the space they're playing in with things now.
Yeah,
because they got
the Strupp family working with them, so you're going to start seeing more soft goods coming from
absolutely
Savage, no doubt about that.
Absolutely.
For
sure. Do we see a situation where the leader that Mythic Legions has been, and having such a vast library of those molds and products, does it impact their ability to pivot if a pivot is necessary? Because now they're stuck with those molds or that commitment to the standard that they've set. And again, that's not bagging on them. It's curiosity to see how this moves forward. I'm extremely excited to see what happens, because I choose to side with the idea that this is only going to force innovation and review of how both Savage and Horsemen do things. And at the end of the day, that puts a better toy on your shelf. It puts a better toy in Hella Dope's, e-store, and an opportunity to get a box with a better figure at the end of the day for me, so that we can let it breathe. So to me, it's interesting, because we're right here, right now, in the moment, watching this play out, and it's a rivalry.
yeah, I'll tell you a big market battle that's going to change everything that you're seeing right now, and it's something you and I talk about even in the beginning of most every show. Is right now there's a huge battle going on between the indie lines and then the big dogs, Mattel and Hasbro. Right now, Mattel and Hasbro have always been competing with each other, right? Just recently, within the last couple of years, Mattel and Hasbro have signed deals to work together and cross over some of their properties. And I guarantee you, if this independent section keeps doing what they're doing, you're going to see a Hastel or a Mattel Bro, coming along soon, guaranteed. Guaranteed that
I
those
mean,
two companies merge.
I mean,
They,
for the longest time,
they
it
can't
was
compete,
those two.
right? They can't
Right.
compete. They own the toys.
Well,
They own the toy shelves in the department stores for the most part, right? Because it's mass produced stuff. But Mattel and Hasbro both make most of their money. I mean, Mattel makes a lot of the money on Barbie, but a lot of that money comes from their kids' toys, their electronics, and their board games. All both of those companies, right? Their action figure market is very small and very limited on what they make for money. And if they're making their money on Play School and other stuff, is it going to hurt them to combine their powers and become one company? Not at all.
that's interesting because for the longest time, I think, and again, I wasn't as heavily involved in the toy community or, following things outside of wrestling action figures prior to the last few years. But I think you would look at like Hasbro and Mattel as the big two, and then you had McFarlane as that, independent or smaller third
Yeah, you got
party, right?
McFarlane and Jack Specific and all those
Yeah, and
smaller.
there's other ones that have kind of bounced around
Yeah.
for years. Jack Specific had WWE for a long time, things like that. Then at TNA, and
Mhm.
now other things have that stuff. But like when you think of it, your point is, does Hasbro and Mattel have the ability to compete with these independent toy lines? You said no, they don't. I say yes, they do. They
Well,
absolutely have the ability. The problem is
do
don't
they have the ability? Yes. Yes, I shouldn't say they don't. Do
They
they
don't have
have
the finger on the pulse to know what needs to be
Right.
done to bring to market the right products. They
Right.
don't have the right people helping with some of those decisions. And if they do have the right people helping with the decisions, their voices don't matter enough
I
to
think
help
that's the
drive
thing,
that.
right? Like I guarantee you, like Lenny, from
Yeah.
Hasbro is probably saying, "Hey, we need to do this," and I'm sure there's people over and Mattel doing the same thing, but they're so focused on. I think, like I said, they're just too big for their own good now, right?
Yeah.
Back in the day, when the Hassenfeld brothers and their children were running Hasbro, they took risk. They're
Yeah.
so risk averse now that they don't want to take a risk and lose any money at all.
Yeah. No, I mean that makes sense.
Their biggest risk is let's give the consumers a $2 price increase and see if we lose any business.
Well, that just comes down to pricing tolerance, and they try to test the price tolerance of consumers all the time. Hey, Model Misfit, thanks for joining, buddy. It's they try to take the easy path. Yep, DJ says it right there. They try to put things on the shelf that they think are going to sell every time. And do they have the money? They could squash all of these other toy communities out. They could come out with it because they could release, if they wanted to, they could release enough Joe figures. And this isn't pointing the finger or slamming on anyone, but I feel like Punk, right? Punk was kind of playing in the space of not just Joe's. He seemed like he was interested in some other things, but then Joe's like jumped through the roof on their production and made it near, like for me, Joe's made it impossible for me to decide to keep every Joe because I was doing holistically trying to grab every one.
Oh yeah.
But then they were producing so many figures that it was like, oh crap, I can't keep up with that and everything else.
Yep.
So they could force some of these smaller companies out of the market if they got their finger to the pulse close enough to understand what consumers actually want and bring that. And they would win these. They would win these battles because smaller guys couldn't keep up. Because at the end of the day, that's just how it is. And I mean,
like Fresh Monkey Fiction, right? They get bumped back. It's because Hasbro and Mattel are saying we want this time slot for this figure run, right? And the factories.
And they got to do it, right? They got to bow.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think that's why, like, part of it is, like I say, if they were to combine their powers, which I absolutely see happening, just being a person that's been in the toy world for 50 years of my life and watching the markets and how they work, I can tell you that Hasbro and Mattel will be joining forces soon.
And when you say joining forces, do you mean that they will partner on things, or they will become?
They're already
single
partnering
supplier?
on things. I think it's going to become official that one of them is going to buy the other one, or they're somehow going to become a actual like legit partnership, not just we'll let you use some of our lines for your board games, and we'll let you use some of our lines for Legos or whatever it is, right? Because that's the partnership they have now.
I'd be curious on how that would impact it, and if it would actually be able to get approved through monopoly standards, just because they have such market of the toy industry.
There's so many independent toy lines out there now, and
it's just
the fact that the toys,
they would literally own the toy section.
Yeah, but the toy sections in the stores are all shrinking. So
I agree.
There's certain amounts of, there has to be a certain amount of product out there to monopolize in order to be considered a monopoly, right?
Yeah.
So, we're seeing it right now. It's happening. I mean, it's just a matter of, you go in a toy store right now, it's like, okay, well, it's Hasbro against, Mattel. It's like the cell phone business, right? It's really Verizon against AT&T, right? I mean, that's it, right? There's other companies out there that are all working off their towers. They're all just, individual companies of those two big dogs. And that's what you're going to start seeing. And you're going to see it. Hasbro and Mattel.
It'll be interesting.
Hasbro and Mattel will become one company very shortly.
That'll be interesting. I will be interested to see that.
And
but I don't want to see it because
in 6 months when it's announced, you come back here and watch this video and you say that motherfucker was right.
That'll be interesting. I'm going to be Googling that all night. That said, I think we covered enough on the market battles and such. I think we covered on a lot of that. They did a lot of cross promotions and shows and packaging commercials, things like that, right? But I think what would be interesting is being at the forefront of what I consider in our smaller subset of toy collectors, the independent toy lines. It'll be interesting to see how some of these smaller, in my head, rivalries. Because
I think the biggest thing to take away from all of it, though, is that, like you and I always say it on every show, for whatever, no matter what topic we're talking about, collect whatever the fuck you like to collect, right?
Yeah.
Don't get into the drama of this one's better than this one, because guess what? Neither one of them fucking care about you as a person. They care about your dollar. And neither one of them give a shit about your opinion because they care about your dollar. So if you like Shipwreck and you like Condor, go buy Shipwreck and Condor. If you want to have them riding around in a Vamp or a Vanguard together, or you want to have the Vanguard drive over the Vamp because it's fun for you, fucking do it. Because there's no point in you being loyal to one toy unless it's your bread and butter and it's the only thing you're going to collect. And that's because that's your choice, right? Don't fall into the drama, because yes, the battles are funny and they're great to talk about, and they definitely help us out as fans, because things, when companies compete, we are the winners for that. But we don't need to be choosing sides and jumping in the drama just because.
Well, an example of that is that, talking about that, right, is that, let's be honest, Valiverse was at Joe Fest for how many years? That was Joe Fest. Yes, there was ongoing joke and heckling, Valifair, whatever they want to, Valifest, whatever. Either way, there was, conventions and stuff tie into this and the fan loyalties, right? These fan loyalties are out there. But I mean, Joe Fest has Savage Crucible, has lines that don't even relevantly, align to each other. You have things like Mythic Legions. They have their Legions Con that they do every year. I think this is their something like 10th year or something in November this year. So it'll be a big one for them. I'm imagining that Mythic Legions won't have any of their competitor fantasy lines out there, but they will have a ton of their Cabal related features there. That'll be interesting when they have a Savage Fest. And there's their own.
Did you say Savage Fest or Sausage Fest?
Can we have both? No, but seriously, like I think that like these conventions, right? Like, fan loyalties, there's conventions popping up, conventions are all over. We made our connection, at PowerCon, which is really tied to
Masters of the Universe.
Masters of the Universe, thank you. He-Man, thank you. And I was trying to think of it. So you have a lot of those things. You do have AWOCs at Legions Con, so there are some other lines that that are there. Thank you for that, Joe. I totally forgot about that.
I think Fresh Monkey Fiction is going to be at Legions con
Oh,
also.
that's awesome. So then that's going to give Legions
Largo
fans
says
an opportunity
bratwurst
to see
for a
other
sausage
independent
fest.
lights. I don't mind that. That is actually a
Yeah.
good. I've
I
had
like
that a few times.
bratwurst.
That's
Yeah.
good.
Now I'm hungry for a
So
grilled sausage. Damn.
with all of the coverage that we gave to the controversial topic of toy rivalries, there's the legendary ones going from Joe and Star Wars, Barbie and Bratz, and Lego and Mega Bloks. But to me, being an independent toy fan, I'm really excited to see what these, in my own head, again, these are rivalries. I mean, I guess the Joe and the Hasbro and Valaverse ones are a true rivalry because there's like so many opposing factors. But
Yeah.
then there's some people like me in the middle that just like my shit, whether it comes from one box or the other. As long as I get what I want, I'm happy. But in my own mind, I've come up with this Savage versus Mythic, rivalry just because they're like in that fantasy space. I collect them both, guys. I like them both. I think they're really cool on both sides. I can't wait to see them challenge each other for dominance of that fantasy realm, because at the end of the day, that's just going to push more product to us at hopefully a cheaper price and a more innovative or creative or positive toy, right? Like it's gonna be a better product.
It's going to be really interesting with those two lines and even this Brutal Realm that's coming.
Yeah, Brutal Realm
See
too.
what happens, because right now, right, Savage is just getting started, and Four Horsemen have their way that they release things, right? Like once a quarter or once, every 6 months, however they do their thing, right? And it's going to be interesting to see which one of them is the first one to just put out like a standard, like Mythic Legions puts out like the night that they made, right? And just has it someplace like fucking Walmart or Target. And, or Savage Crucible comes out with, like a barbarian or one of their lizard characters that's just a standard army builder, like the slates, and it just ends up in Walmart or Target, right? Because that's what's going to separate the two as far as branching out into the market farther.
Yeah, I mean, because Mythics has done, in my opinion, they've done all that they can in the space that they play.
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
And
in
they
the
own it.
independent
And
world,
they've to grow.
Yeah,
they'll continue to grow, but they won't. I don't want to say hit a ceiling. They obviously expanded themselves into the Cosmics as a Four Horsemen as a product line to diversify their product lines.
Mythic Legions is on that nice slope of rising now, whereas Savage Crucible is still at the beginning, so they're on the steep.
Right, so it looks like
line,
that exactly. Yeah. Right, and it'll be interesting to see. Like we know that we've seen Action Force. They move from square boxes that don't really go on pegs to more peg hanging boxes and packaging. So they're trying to get to the market to what looks to be something that can hang in your local Walmart or Target.
Yep.
If that happens with Savage or that happens with Four Horsemen, that's going to get into Johnny's hands, because Johnny's dad was walking through the toy section and goes, "Damn, that's really cool looking figure. Oh wait, that's a night. What's Mythic Legions?" And then boom, down the rabbit hole. And then we got a new sub and somebody else following another YouTube channel, and we got another person in the Brotherhood, right?
Yep.
That found that toy line because they were at the store with their kids, and that's where they saw it. You're only going to get so far in the online community the way we have.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see this rivalry that I've crafted in my head between two of what I think are the coolest lines out there, especially in fantasy. And then there's even more, right? We've been inundated with military lines, with Action Force and Patriot Force and, Monster Force and all of that. Are we on the verge of seeing a few more fantasy lines that all tie together?
I think that's another thing, right? Like Monster Force is coming out. The first figures are going to be shipped out in August. I think that Hasbro and Valaverse are going to be quite impacted by that line once it actually starts getting out there, more than either one of them are ready for. Just because it's something new, it's something a little bit different, and it plays well with both of them, right? So it's kind of like you were saying, I like, these characters and I like these characters. I can't buy every single Joe. I can't buy every single Valaverse. I'm going to buy the ones that I like. And then now you got Monster Force, right? So now your pick and choose selection is between 3 lines instead of 2. And then Patriot Force comes out and your pick and choose is between 4 lines instead of just 2, right? So now you're picking one from this line, one from this line, one from this line, and maybe 2 from this line. And instead of, 5 from here and 5 from here, now you're picking 2 from a bunch of different brands, right? It's going to be, I think those are really going to impact Hasbro and Valaverse, and they're going to have to change some of the ways they do things. Like Vala, right? He kind of was, I don't want to say he was dead in the water, but it was very stagnant for a while because his wave that he did with the Arctic guys and stuff like that really didn't, a Desert Steel Brigade and blah blah blah, right? No one was like, oh my god, except for the the Vala shills, right? Now he's got this new wave coming out with some really interesting characters that are, Colonel Siege is a cool looking character. He's got the bigger Buck and Atlas coming out, a little more pizzazz, but still nothing mind blowing. Hasbro is still doing, Hasbro. This is the figures we're making, and are they cool? Yes, but are they ones where you're like falling out of your chair, like, oh, holy shit, I got to have those, right?
There's a few of them I bought, but that's it.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, right? But in a whole, they're not blowing anybody's pants off, either one of them, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Well,
and we're also forgetting about the Fist. If the Fist keeps going and they come out with that vehicle,
thank you.
I mean, Jesus,
Yeah, the Nightwolf and
tighten up their figures a little bit for production.
Yeah, just improve the overall production quality. Yeah, I mean, there's so much out there, right? Monster Force, I want to get into it, I really do, but I have so many other wants, and I'm just trying to hold off. But I feel like I'm going to regret on misses there because it's a situation that there's too much product and a limit on what I can consume.
Oh yeah,
but yeah, I mean, like, I think I looked out there and then, like, if I wanted to order all the figures that I wanted from that wave, that Monster Force stuff, I'd be looking at close to $1,200-$1,300 for everything.
Luckily, the first release is only 3 figures. Like, they're only releasing Van Helsing, Dracula, and the Forgotten King in the first wave, and then shortly after that, they're coming out with another 3 that are considered wave 1. But so it's going to be a little bit easier to digest, but still over the course of the next 6 months, you're talking, like you said, $1,000. I mean, that's
and I got Savages I got to buy.
Right.
I got some Mythics I'm sure I'm going to want to buy.
Yeah, we got to get into Brutal Realm. And that's like,
and then there's a whole crap ton of mounts that I got to buy. And I've got like 2 full backing all in AWOC Wave Series 2s. Like,
oh, geez, I didn't even think about AWOC out there too. Jesus.
Yeah, dude, like, it's crushing. Like, there's so much. It's really cool. It's a cool time. I think that let's close the topic on this. It's a really kick-ass time to watch the toy lines that are coming from the independent toy line producers. And it's a really exciting time to be in the Brotherhood and be part of the ToyLeet. Let's see what the next rivalry is.
That's right. The next rivalry is going to be AWOC versus Space Zombies from Mars. That's going to be the next big
well, that's another one, Space Zombies from Mars, though. Yeah. But, like, so many. That said, this has been an awesome topic. Dare I say wonderful, maybe? Yeah. I think
wonderful. So. It was a wonderful topic full of action.
I like it. You're onto something. Next week, we'll be getting back together. We do have a topic for next week. It's iconic toy lines through the decades.
Yep.
We're going to go back as far in time as we can go. It might be AC, BC, I don't know, AC/DC, Metallica, who knows? I don't know. But we're going to go back in time. We're going to pick our top 5. Well, actually, we'll figure it out. It'll be a number, but Ed's going to pick his top toy line of the decades, and I'm going to pick mine. Makes it limited because I kind of haven't been into toys as long. But we're going to go ahead and put a list together of the top toys through the decades. So check us out next week. Don't forget to hit the like, the sub, and try to share it if you can.
Right.
I saw a ton of shares this week on Instagram for tonight's show, so really appreciate the heck out of everyone that did that. We enjoy having you guys here. Hopefully you enjoy, listening to us go back and forth, and
tell all your friends to come sub and check us out. We're sitting
looking to get to 300, right?
Yeah, sitting right over top of 200 now, and we keep getting subs every week, but it would be nice to get some more and keep that momentum going. So
so if you enjoy what you see, enjoy what you hear, and think somebody else in the Brotherhood wants to up their game and be part of the ToyLeet, go ahead and like, subscribe, share that information. we appreciate you guys, and I think that's gonna call it here.
That sounds good to me. All right, everybody.
Let your toys breathe, do this. Toys on the desk, it's the new habitat. ToyLeet Takeover, we're loving